we're going to do one on some of the basic stuff that you need to know, be able to deal with comprehending Crowley stuff. So, also work of most Western Hermetic magicians have accepted the Tree of Life to the Tree of Life diagram into their hierarchy of things. So the Tree of Life diagram is like this. Okay, that's your basic diagram representing the plan of the universe. So theoretically, that diagram right there contains the entire macrocosm within it and the entire microcosm within it. So this is like a ground plan or a map of the universe or of people. This is just going to be an overview, so we're not going to get too complicated about things. First, before we go too much farther, I wanted to introduce the 4 planes to those who are not familiar with that and their Hebrew names. So if you see reference to these in the books on the Golden Dawn or other Western Hermetic stuff, since they've incorporated this pretty completely. So you're talking about 4 planes. Absoluth, which is basically the same as what we call the Akashic plane. So it's the plane where everything is in potential, but nothing is happening. It's also where the Akashic records are, of course. Okay, so you go down to the next plane. You've got Braya, and that is the equivalent of the mental plane. So you get thought forms taking place there. Such as where all your thinking goes, where your mind is, your rational mind and all there in the Braya area, your mental body. And you got Yetzirah, which is the astral plane, basically, and it is subject to form. So anything on the astral plane will have form, and if it makes down to the material plane, Asaya, it'll have, or onto the physical plane, Asaya, it will have the ability to materialize down, which means it's limited to time and space. So those 4 planes are complete. They can be considered varying shades of density of each other. So there's, for the planes, not such a great definite, you don't run across any sudden lines in analog stuff. So they all kind of fade into one another, but the material plane is infinite. So is the astral plane and the mental plane. And they all kind of interpenetrate each other, being a finer and finer level. So the mental stuff is obviously much finer material than the physical. That's the way those work. The reason we have to know that, amongst all the other good reasons, is the fact that we can put the Tree of Life onto that. I'm going to put the Tree of Life back up and take a look at it. You'll notice there are 10 spheres from top to bottom. These 10 spheres are a complete plan of the universe. It said there is 1 tree per plane. So the Akashic plane contains 1 entire tree. The Malkuth of the Akashic plane becomes the Kether of the next plane, So then you've got another tree of life laid out in the mental plane, and the Malkuth of that one becomes the Kether of the astral plane. The Malkuth of that one becomes the Kether of the physical plane, and you go down through. So you actually have 4 trees, 40 spheres, but since they're plane dependent, usually just describe it as one, and it's understood that the Enotum Mundum, as they used to call it, the tree of life, Kabbalistic tree of life diagram, interpenetrates all 4 planes. Now, there's one other, 2 other really important attributes to this that I wanted to mention. You'll notice the spheres are colored. It starts from the top, and this is where the highest light, the highest imagination, the highest emanation comes forth. Kether, around Kether, before Kether, there's the absolute limitless light, Ein Sof Ar. When you come to Kether, you've got the first limitation that comes into being as Kether, signifying the highest enlightenment and highest illumination, highest light mankind can perceive or work with. The second sphere is gray. That's called Hakma, and its attribute is wisdom. And Hakma, gray is a good color. It's also, if one wants to emphasize the aspect of wisdom in particular, divine wisdom, can be divided into white and black, and that is what you find with like the Masonic white and black tiles, things like that in the lodges, because that wisdom is really composed of white and black as the only, anyway, that's what it is. Won't go into more explanation except that I saw it clearly that way myself, and that's what the meaning of that is, amongst other things. Third sphere is black. That's the Sephirah Bina, and that's compared to the great ocean, and its attribute is darkness and inertia. As the great sea, it's the water quality, absence of the male quality. So the water is the condensing, cold, magnetic. Hakma, wisdom, is considered the male for this aspect. In fact, all of the spheres are, the sphere below is always considered female to the sphere above, meaning the emanations go down when you're talking in this sense. So the third one is Bina, Great Sea, and it has the attribute of Saturn, so it includes all the Saturnian things and judgments on humanity and all those things that are considered scary and frightening, but actually are there for a good purpose. Of course, it is scary when you can't see the light, but it has its purpose and must be accepted too. So Bina is not in any means a negative thing. Either of these can be positive or negative. Usually my understanding is that if it's positive associated with the Sephirah, or the negative of the Sephirah is usually an excess of the positive. So, as an example, the next one down will go Gematria. That's blue and has the planet Saturn attributed to it. And That means you can, all those things attributed to Saturn, like, excuse me, Jupiter. Jupiter blue. So nice Jupiter, kingly, get you things, wealth, prosperity, all that kind of stuff. But also as Jedula, it corresponds to the divine attribute of endless mercy, grace. So down from there, have the fifth Sephirah, Gematria. It is red and associated with the planet Mars and things like your metabolism, your circulation, things like that come into aspects of Mars. And then, of course, the negative aspect of Mars, everybody knows, wars and things like that. But there's also positive healing aspects and useful activity. So again, either of them, they're not positive or negative, they're balanced, the idea, in themselves. And so the fifth Gematria is, Gematria is power, attributed to power. Sixth, Sephirah, is yellow, and it's the center, and it's attributed to the sun. The sun, considered as the center of the cosmos, for the symbol is a dot in a circle. That symbolizes the microcosm within the macrocosm functioning there. So you have a balanced symbol, especially balanced at this spot in the tree, and it's all about balance and such things as art, beauty. It's also called beauty. That's one of its aspects, divine beauty. What really makes things beautiful, things like that are associated with that, Sephora. And seventh is Netzach, Venus, green, emerald green. You pretty much get the idea of the Venus attributes, the female, love-related, that kind of thing. Barden recommends watching out if you do mental travels to the Venus sphere because they are very seductive, apparently, male and female. So just in case. And then seventh sphere is Netzach. The eighth sphere is Hod. That's Mercury. And Hod has a particular connection not only to the Mercury beings, but to the mind practitioner. Hod is where the mental plane, kind of like a mental plane thing, or at Hod. And that's the sphere of the mind, the brain, and also the Mercury sphere. It's yellow-orange color. The ninth sphere is Sod. That is purple. That is the lunar sphere, the sphere of the moon. And as such relates to the astral body, the astral zone. Refers to the astral body, moon, but it also refers to, in the physical layout, it's in the place of the genitalia of the practitioner and relates to the chakra there, which is a sex-related chakra, which makes perfect sense, and the lunar aspect, and that's all tied together. And then 10th is Malkuth, which is our physical reality, not just this planet, but our physical reality here, where things are matter. And it also goes infinitely and throughout everything. But Malkuth is called the kingdom for a particular and somewhat interesting reason. The highest, Kether, is the highest thing manifested, period. And Malkuth is called the kingdom because that kether comes right down through that central pillar, down to the root, and is hidden within Malkuth. So basically, you have the highest enlightenment, the highest anything, hidden within the most material manifestation of things. So it's kind of like saying that God is everywhere. Kether is in Malkuth, hidden within there. So it's a little harder to find and harder to see because it's within all this course material. But then that makes this course material something special because even the highest can be found in everything, no matter what the material is. And in the past, people have used the idea of, like, well, God's even in a dog poop, but it kind of gets the point across, but I don't care for such unpleasant imaginings. We don't need them. We can say God is everywhere. There you go, and that's what we're talking about, the highest and the lowest. And so we have these ideas. Now we have the Kabbalistic tree of life diagram. They have these ideas associated with it. So Crowley went to extremes to try and associate every idea and everything he could think of with one of those Sephirah and fit them all in so that you get a filing system. Is if it has to do with power or martial stuff, we'll go to Gematria. If it has to do with mercy or Jupiter or stuff like that, we go to Jedula. And so this makes it a very powerful filing system for ideas. And you can use that as a means to find out, say you want to do a working that's associated with love. You can look up in what's called the color scales and things, and look up a color and look up the aspects of that so that you get an idea. So that gives you a way to categorize all kinds of things, categorize them as far as colors and things. Hope this all isn't overloaded on the audio. Got it turned up a little too loud. Got a little bit. Anyway, so Crowley always refers to that. Okay, now on that tree of life, it's not listed on that diagram. I'll have to add them another time. Each of the paths, what they're called, between Sephora, what the spheres are called. Sephora means book, basically. Paths between them all have Hebrew letters assigned to them, colors assigned to them, and that type of thing. So you can follow the paths. There's some interesting aspects there. There are 3 veils on the tree. Those are according to the 3 cross paths on the tree, from Geber to Gedula, Od to Netzach. Those are like a barrier or a veil that you have to go through and see above it. It has been said that once you get halfway, make your way halfway to God, that is halfway to Kether or Tippereth in the center, God will come halfway down to you to meet you there. There's a lot more to it, but we're going to have to stop there for this purposes. This is just so people can get an idea of where to start trying to read Crowley. So he throws out Hebrew letters a lot. And another thing people will need to know about the Hebrew letters, and I suppose I should have stuck the Hebrew alphabet in here somewhere. I'll come up with something and paste it in at the end. But the paths all have Hebrew letters and have their specific colors and things. And there's a process associated with the Hebrew letters and things called Gematria. And Gematria means adding up the letters of words. That if you add up the letters of two different words and they add up to the same number, then there is some interrelated connection there. So the way this works with regard to the tree of life is Sephirah are numbered 1 through 10 also. So if you get if the number of the path is between 0 to 10, they usually talk about the Sephirah. Those are kind of a little blind there. Those are called paths, but they're not actually the paths. The paths start at 11, and in this case that would be Aleph, or the equivalent of an A. And these can be added together to make different things. So if you have a word, for example, in Hebrew, the word akkad means per unit. Add it up. So you've got Aleph. I'm trying to think of how to say this to make it clear for people who haven't experienced the thing, but if I take, let's say I take the Aleph, and in Hebrew, Tau. That's the end. Aleph is the beginning. So Aleph would be given a number of 1. Tau is given a number of 400. Each of the letters is given a number. They go from basically 1 up to 9, and then they start out with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, up to 90, and then 100, 200, 300, 400. So the way that works is when referring to the various planes, each one of the numbers affects plane. So if it's if you're using Quaballah, for example, a single letter, or if the word only adds up to like 9 or something. So single ones refer to the Akashic plane, or excuse me, the mental plane. Atziluth, or Yetzirah, Briah. I'm sorry, I don't use the Hebrew words very often, so I forget. Middle plane is Briah, and it would be numbers 1 through 9. So the letters that have 2 numbers or more, like 18, refer to the astral plane. So if you want to make something manifest down in the astral plane, you look at it. Yeah. 2 letters would be astral plane, and then 3 letters start on the material plane. So I have like the word shin, which is Hebrew, adds up to a value of 300, and then it might put an Aleph with that, 301. Maybe you'd stick an M on there, say Sham, whatever. So then that would be 40, so you'd have 341 for a word. Because Shin. So, and once you've got that, 341, you can add those again together. So you've got 4 plus 1, that's 5, 6, 7, 8. So you've got a base number, 8, which would refer to the Sephirah odd, Mercury. So you might imply from that this has some sort of mercurial aspect and reference at its base, and then has been modified by the other attributes. So it's all a very complicated process. But if you realize that's what Crowley is doing, talking about all this stuff, that it makes it easier, because you can always look up the Hebrew alphabet. You can always look up the Quaballah. You can look up the numbers associated with the Hebrew alphabet. You can follow him along when he does his things, because he throws out long sentences and lines of. It must be remembered that Crowley was actually kind of a prodigy in some respects. Well, maybe the wrong word. He was sort of a chess master, but not a prodigy. He played it incessantly. Crowley did. But the same way with a lot of his other skills, he practiced them incessantly and became very erudite. Sometimes it's just too much for the beginner to comprehend it all. And even for advanced practitioners in some cases, a lot of cases. So just following the course of his thought through his explanations and things can be difficult, because he has a little bit of, I have a little bit of the same problem he did, but not to that extent, where he can't bring himself down to the level of a beginner to see how that felt. When you get old like me, older and older, getting farther and farther away, and it's harder and harder to remember. So please forgive me if I do that. And sometimes I expect people to be capable of picking up things faster and such, because it's just been so long. I don't remember how long it took, how much effort it was. And it wasn't easy. This has been years and years of hard work to get. So anytime you're reading anything like Crowley, keep that in mind. And then he has a whole nother hierarchy. When he got delivered the holy books were dictated to him. This, he took years to accept it because of its negative connotations and things, and the way it sounds. It sounds pretty bad largely, but understood properly, it's not. It's that proper understanding that causes the problem. So when you get to that phase, he's talking about the hierarchy he uncovered, dictated it, and it dictated itself to him. So you have chaos, Babylon, Nuit, Rahur Kuit, Hadit, the new Aeon, lots and lots of things like that that require their own explanation. So I'm going to stop this one here. This is basically our first deeper dive into the stuff about Crowley, and I welcome questions. If anyone, legitimate questions about the subject, and if anyone wants to know more or go deeper into any of these things, first off, do some research on your own. It's all out there most. Then I'll be able to, glad to answer anything or add any particular things you might need to add to your understanding of the system. So this is a system in which Crowley worked. There was one other part of the hierarchy I might mention, just because we're putting the Crowley stuff in here too a little bit. It's the 30 ethers for Enochian. I'll have to do another video on these to know it, but the ethers are similar to the tree of life. Not in physical construction. You can picture them almost like layers of an onion going outward, outermost ether, ether. But basically, they are another method of presenting a map of the universe, and that is the Enochian way specifically. And as the tree of life has often been used and traveled upward with scrying to see visions from the paths and the Sephirah. So Crowley used the ethers and scried them all and put that all in a book. That turned into the vision and the voice, which is great information, but again, takes that lots of hermetic knowledge and stuff because Crowley was really it was second nature to him. It was just came to him as a snap of the fingers. So takes us mere mortals a little while to figure this stuff out. But Crowley's well worth it if you're willing to put up with attitudes of somebody from that time period and able to overlook some of the more annoying things about him. His character wasn't the okay. So everybody have a good one. Thank you for watching my video. Blessed be. Have a wonderful night or day, whatever it is in your location. Goodbye.